The photograph was taken in the thin light before dawn, on a morning that was supposed to look like every other morning of the air war. The engines of the B-17G shuddered as they climbed through cloud. The fuselage rattled. Frost formed along the seams of the plexiglass nose. Inside, Lieutenant Alan Hughes steadied his breathing and adjusted the straps of his harness. He had done this 19 times before. He knew the sound of a healthy engine. He knew the rhythm of a proper climb. He knew the tone in a pilot's voice when something was wrong. But on this morning, nothing sounded wrong. Everything was routine. Everything followed the pattern. The target was a munitions plant outside Dresden. It appeared in the briefing packet as a shape, a rectangle, a grid of shadows, a place stripped of context. A place defined only by its contribution to the German war machine. Hughes had stared at the aerial sketch the night before. He had memorized the angle of approach. He had memorized the escape route. He had memorized the expected resistance. He had not memorized anything else, because nothing else mattered. The crew of the Hawthorne Bell lifted off from RAF Ridgewell at 0542 hours. The cold bit through gloves and uniforms. Voices crackled through the intercom. Navigators marked bearings. Bombardiers ran checks on the Norden site. Gunners scanned the sky for enemy fighters that might rise out of fog like teeth. For 30 minutes, the flight looked like any other. Then the Dutch border passed beneath them, and the sky changed. Flak opened, not scattered, not random, tight, practiced, disciplined. Shells burst at the altitude they were flying, as if someone had measured their approach with a ruler. The sky filled with black smoke that pulsed like lungs. The formation held anyway. That was doctrine. That was expectation. That was what kept them alive. Inside the nose, Hughes pressed his glove to a trembling panel and leaned forward. He lifted his K-20 camera, the bulky metal-bodied device he carried on every mission. The camera weighed nearly 25 pounds. It had no zoom, no stabilization. It was meant for mapping, not art, but Hughes carried it like a lifeline. He photographed everything: the ground, the sky, the bomb run, the damage. Some crews joked that he wanted proof of every second he lived. He never denied it. At 20,000 feet, the clouds thinned, the ground sharpened. Rivers and rail lines stitched the landscape into deliberate patterns. Long shadows stretched across fields. And then Hughes saw something he could not categorize. A cluster of buildings arranged in rows. A fence, a gate, a watchtower, and a yard filled with human figures, hundreds of them packed tightly, motionless, like a single dark shape pressed into the earth. At first, he thought it was a labor site, a factory barracks, a storage yard, but the geometry was wrong. Too many people in too small a space, too much emptiness surrounding them, too many shadows where shadows should not be. The plane banked slightly. The light shifted, and the truth resolved. It was a camp. He had heard rumors in the mess hall. He had heard fragments of intercepted intelligence, stories about fenced compounds, about chimneys, about smoke no factory should produce. But rumors had never looked back at him. Rumors had never lifted their faces toward a bomber and stared. He lifted the camera. He did not speak. He did not ask for clearance. He did not hesitate. He pressed the shutter. Once. Then again. Then again. He captured the buildings. He captured the fences. He captured the bodies in the yard. He captured the prisoners looking skyward with hollow, uncomprehending faces. He did not know their names. He did not know their stories. He only knew he had seen something that did not belong on any map of military targets. The formation continued east. The mission unfolded. The bombardier prepared for the run. The pilot maintained altitude. Then the radio crackled. Abort! Abort! All groups abort. Return to base. No explanation. No inflection. Just a command. Bomb bay doors closed. Engines throttled back. The formation turned west, carrying full bomb loads home. Back at Ridgewell, intelligence officers waited near the runway. They escorted Hughes away from the crew before he could remove his gear. They took his camera. They took the film. They asked him to describe exactly what he saw, exactly where the light hit, exactly how the shadows fell. 2 hours later, in a locked room, the photographs appeared in trays of developing fluid. The details emerged slowly, like a memory rising through darkness. The officers leaned in. They saw the barracks. They saw the fencing. They saw the lines of prisoners. They saw the truth that reconnaissance reports had hinted at but never captured from the sky. The image moved through the chain of command with unusual speed. It bypassed routine channels. It bypassed desk officers, who usually filtered intelligence. It landed on the desks of analysts who rarely saw raw reconnaissance. They compared it with other reports. They matched rail lines. They studied the shadows to estimate the number of people. They measured building lengths to calculate capacity. What they found aligned with the grim numbers whispered through refugee accounts. A camp. A large one. Active. Efficient. Hidden in plain sight. And yet, the Allied bombing plan did not change publicly. It shifted quietly, almost invisibly, inside the machinery of war. The Dresden munitions plant was downgraded on priority lists. Transport hubs feeding the region were upgraded. Rail lines leading to camps across German territory suddenly stood out as critical targets. Bomb loads were reassigned. Sorties were recalculated. The change was never officially tied to the photograph, but history rarely requires an official statement to recognize cause and effect. The technical analysis came next. The K-20 camera, with its fixed shutter and 4x5 negative, had captured an image with more clarity than anyone expected. The angle of light, the altitude, the slow bank of the aircraft, all combined to produce what analysts later called accidental precision. From the sky, the camp's geometry became undeniable. The system became undeniable. The industrial logic of it became undeniable. Strategists began speaking differently in briefings. Words like transport interdiction appeared more often. Words like special installations gained new weight. Words like civilian displacement centers quietly disappeared. The psychological effect reached the air crews as well. Hughes flew his 21st mission with a sharper gaze. He scanned the ground differently. He found himself searching for patterns of movement, patterns of stillness, patterns that might reveal more shadows where shadows did not belong. He did not talk about the photograph with his crew. Airmen avoided such conversations. Philosophy did not keep a bomber flying. Reflection did not tighten fuel lines. But the ground no longer looked like pure geometry to him. It looked like consequence. For intelligence officers, the photograph introduced a new form of pressure, one not measured in casualties or tonnage, but in responsibility. They were required to interpret not just infrastructure, but intention. Not just targets, but systems built for purposes that violated every principle the war claimed to defend. Some argued rail lines feeding camps should be bombed. Some argued bombing them would do little. Some argued precision was impossible. Some argued precision was irrelevant. And beneath all those arguments lay the unspoken truth. The war had revealed a crime it did not yet know how to confront. Hughes never learned the debates occurring above him. He flew his missions. He returned to base. He finished his tour. He went home. He lived a quiet life in a country rebuilding from victory. But the photograph endured. Historians found it years later. Analysts matched it to camp records. Survivors identified the layout. The image became evidence in tribunals. It entered archives, then textbooks, then museum walls. And yet, its most immediate legacy was simpler. It stopped bombs from falling. Bombs that would have erased evidence. Bombs that would have killed the prisoners he photographed. Bombs that would have turned the truth into ash before anyone could record it. The photograph did not end the war. It did not liberate the camp. It did not rescue the people within its frame. But it did something rare in a war defined by destruction. It forced recognition from 20,000 feet. War is often told through explosions, through battles, through offensives and counteroffensives. But sometimes war pivots on smaller things. A shutter click, a frozen frame, a moment of instinct inside a vibrating bomber. A moment where light, altitude, and human attention intersect. The photograph that stopped 1,000 bombs from falling did not shift the world on its axis. But it forced the world to look. It forced the world to understand. It forced the world to confront a truth buried beneath smoke and silence. And sometimes, in the long ledger of history, that is enough.